So you're hiking alone, walking toward a ravine in the middle of nowhere. You stop. You sit down on the side of the ravine. You take your pack off. Moments later, though, the pack slides down the ravine, down a steep cliff. And there's no way to go and access that without having the possibility of injuring yourself. You realize because of the clothes you wore, you didn't have any pockets, so you put everything in your pack. What are you going to do? How can you signal for help? Because you're not even sure where you're at. And this is something that does happen from time to time. So I'm just going to talk about two main techniques when you have nothing. And because the average person doesn't know how to make fire by friction or by primitive means, these two particular techniques are going to be the most logical way. But before you can use these techniques, you want to go to the highest elevation to look out, to see and find a nice open clearing. Especially if you're in a dense woodland area and you have a canopy of cover above you. There's no way anybody's going to see you. And let's also hope that you told at least two people before you left that if you're not back by a certain time, they need to contact the rangers. So when you're up there on this higher elevation, you're going to look for also a couple other things besides just an open clearing, just in case you do have to spend the night. You'll at least have the knowledge of where the lower elevations are also, and has the higher likelihood that there could be a stream or some type of water source. Also, when you're up there, look for an area that could give you some shelter. An area that's kind of not the highest point, but also not the lowest point, somewhere in the middle. That typically gives you some of the better shelter options. But back to signaling. So after you're on the highest point, you want to travel down to the opening area. The open area that is going to give the best visibility from above, because most likely the rangers are going to be coming from and doing a sweep from the air. And so you're in this area. You can also do mainly two things. Like I said, if you didn't know how to make fire, and if you didn't have any other means of communication, like in this situation, you can either do the subtractive or additive method. The subtractive could be, gouging out part of the earth, maybe pulling out weeds and forming different symbols, distress symbols. It could be X's, a series of X's. Most likely in the United States, it would be like series of threes, like 3 X's, or if you had a fire, 3 fires. If you had a whistle, for example, 3 blasts at a time, or 3 gunshots at a time. In some countries, it's more than 3, so you just have to know your local area. So basically, you would take and you would subtract the part of the earth, and what happens here is you cause either some type of contrast, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for contrast, especially from afar. And that can be done by subtracting, which gives you a shadow that way, or adding, maybe like dragging logs, or piling up dirt, or debris, or leaves, or branches, and causing a shadow that way. So you're looking for that type of contrast. So using the subtractive or additive method to create contrast, shadow, and to stand out. Of course, if you did have brightly colored clothes, you could always use that as a makeshift flag. But yelling isn't going to go very far, as we have talked about in the previous videos. That yelling is not going to get much more than maybe a few hundred yards for most people. So that's just something to consider. If you get really lost and you have no options, no gear, not even a cell phone, those are just some things to look at. But you do need to kind of keep in mind, though, your shelter needs and hydration needs, just to get you through maybe a night or two if you really had to, before you can get rescued. As always, just remember to have redundancies on your person. Everyday carry items, maybe clothing that would lend for you to carry those items. In worst pack scenarios, don't always put your pack down with not having anything else on your person, because you may not have that resource if something bad happened, such as an animal attacked you, or if it did fall off a ravine, or whatnot. Thanks a lot. I'll catch you real soon.